We've got to find a bigger initial pool to sell to. So we've got to solve a more generalized problem and then have more potential customers and then convert those potential customers. Now, the challenge is that it's
Hello, my name is Jane. I am an independent designer based in Toronto. This is a video series where I show my process developing a physical data visualization product. Happy Lunar New Year! It is the year of the ox. I hope this new year treats you much better than last year. I wish you and your family health, prosperity, and happiness. So let's get started this week. I didn't make a video last week, so this week I'm going to try to catch up. So last week, there's a couple things covered. So I discovered a new tool called Exploding Topics, and I made a quick summary of what I learned based on the larger market research trends. So this is kind of what I went through last week. I also shared some resources I've been going through. So I've been reading lots of books to help guide my process. This week, there are some challenges I've had, so I'm going to talk about that. So week 4, one thing I do want to talk about and address is a project roadmap, because I think it's probably confusing when I talk about a design project, but I'm not designing anything yet. And one thing I do want to emphasize is that the process to create anything does take a lot of time. Research is always very important, and it's a very tedious process, but it's really, really important. It's a way to build your foundation. So for me, I'm still technically in the research phase. I sort of started a little bit of design, but I'm not there yet. So I'm more towards here now. I'm approaching this part. In general, this is a sort of a cycle you could expect for any design project. And it can go back and forth. It's not always linear. It tends to progress in this direction overall, but it can move around a lot. So even if you're in production, sometimes you might have to do additional research. Things like that will happen. So in my case, there will be a lot more time here, and here is probably I'm spending a little bit of time just finalizing things. But if you look at the overall picture of designing a product or creating something to sell, this is probably, I don't know, it really depends on industry. This is my hunch. And don't take these numbers at face value. This whole process is about 40% of the whole thing. I think this is a lot more, 60%. So it does depend on the scale of the project. It does depend on what kind of project you're doing. It does depend on what kind of product you're developing. Every industry is different, but in the case of what I'm doing, I think this is a distribution of time and also energy and money that's going to be distributed. It's going to look like. So there are two main things I'm going to talk about, one thing from last week and one thing from this week. So in case you're watching my video for the first time, I am creating a business learning resource for people who want to start and grow a pottery business. That's a high level of what I have been working towards. What that means is I want to develop it through physical cards that explains concepts with data visualization. This sounds completely foreign to you, I'm sure, and I do not know how to explain it other than saying it this way. In my head, I have an idea of how it's going to look like, but don't think too much about it. Just know this is how I'm approaching it. So I'm still in the research phase, and in the third week, what I did a lot of research about pottery businesses and also pottery as a craft. And the way I approached it was I started looking up domain experts who were really good at documenting their stuff. So before I step into that, I'm going to talk about what I mean about domain. So in general, in everything in life, there's a framework and there's a topic or a domain. So for example, if you create websites, that is a framework that you can apply to different domains, different topics. So it could be about wellness. It could be about sport. You can create a website about, just about anything, about business, about startup. So in my field of work, it's very similar, right? Data visualization design is a framework. It's not a topic. It's something you use to apply to many, many topics. Pottery business is the one I chose for this specific project. And because I don't have knowledge in much pottery business, I have to do a lot of research about it. And that's really important, especially if you're doing a topic that you're not familiar with. It might be common for some people who are experts in a specific framework, they tend to specialize in a topic so that they can develop expertise. So say for instance, if your topic is about nonprofits who work specifically in social issues, that's something that you're passionate about, something you care about. You don't really have to do a lot of the basic research, but you'll still have to do some more specific research to help you build your project out. And so I saved a lot of links. So this is a way to show my research. I just been saving a bunch of links that I've been reading, and I save them because I don't want to lose them, and it's a way to help me close my tabs. I have too many tabs open. So one thing that was really, really helpful for me to develop domain knowledge is to look at content creators of the topic. So I was looking up a lot of content creators in pottery, and this was really by accident. It wasn't on purpose, but I would come across these people as I was doing research. So here's one that I came across. This was really, really helpful. He is a new pottery who is from Melbourne, Australia, and he started his YouTube channel and his business probably, it seems like from his videos, earlier 2020, and that's when he's been seriously considering it as a business, and he's been documenting it in a lot of detail actually in his videos. So when I watch his videos, what's nice about his videos is he talks out loud. He'll think about the things he's doing, he'll think about his next steps for his business, he'll think about what's working and what isn't. He'll even share things like his income for one of the business months. So I think this is really helpful for me to understand the people that I want to help, who are people who want to start pottery businesses. What are the challenges they're going through? What's it like in their day? What's their day in the life like? And usually if you're in market research or just user research in general, you would do something called ethnographic studies, where you would try to really understand people's day of life, to understand some of the challenges they face and how you can solve them. But I can't really do that. We're in a pandemic, we're in a lockdown, and I can't just really, observe someone for a whole day. But video is something that's very accessible for me, and it's very cheap for me to use. On the flip side, I actually also found someone by accident. So this is one of the delightful things about design. You just come across these things and you just learn about, the wonderful people who are doing wonderful things. So I found Mia Ree. She owns Good Elephant Pottery. She is based in Maryland, United States, and she has been doing her pottery business for over a decade. And she is on the flip side of the previous potter. His name is Kevin. And Mia is really good about documenting her process and her business, actually. So I found her from a blog post where she did this year-long project calculating her income, her hourly income. She talks about this process of how she did it, and she explains how which income revenue for her was the most lucrative, and what was working, what wasn't. So this was a really detailed post that led me to learn about her blog. And once again, these things are really, really useful because it helps me understand what are the things that are going through their minds, right? And I think for me, I was looking this up, actually. What I was looking up was salaries of potters, because I was figuring out what can I visualize. So this is where I was sort of entering the design phase, as I was teasing out variables I could show, and this post came up. So I was very lucky. So her blog is a wealth of information that I could tap into. And so this is a tip I just want to share in general, is if you're doing any domain research, it's always helpful to look into people who are constantly creating content, whether it's a blog, video, a podcast. It's a really good way to, first of all, tap into what they know and also into their network. Usually what you'll notice is that they'll also talk about other people in their industry, in their field. And that's a really good way for you to start. It's a big node for you to branch out and do lots more research. So the second thing I want to talk about, which is what happened more recently, is idea validation. And I have been having a lot of doubts about my idea, if this was a good idea, because for me, pottery businesses, I felt might have been too specific and too narrow, but I wasn't quite sure. So I was at the point where I wanted to pause and slow down, because is there going to be enough interest? Is it something that's viable? Could I compete with traditional solutions to what I'm trying to solve? And so I decided to actually hire someone. I hired a business coach. So I hired someone who, based on a recommendation from a friend, and I decided to hire Michael Janda. So you might have heard about him before. He is quite well known in the creative marketing business space. And it was actually very, very helpful to hire him and talk to him. I think the most valuable exercise we did was a viability exercise. It was really simple exercise. All you had to do was first identify the market size that you're trying to target, which is a very crude number. You can just like Google, and then you calculate the 1% for conversion. So we did that, and then it helped me understand. So here's a video or a short clip of our conversation and how he helped me out. So in this clip, Michael is helping me break down the viability of pottery businesses. What he's done here is he said, okay, how many people do we think has a pottery business? And I provided a really crude number from Reddit, and he's helping me break down if this is viable as a target audience or not.
People do you
50,000 people are on the Reddit. That's why I know.
Okay, 50,000 on Reddit. 50,000 pottery on Reddit. And on Reddit, how many of those, let's just take a number and say how many of those are businesses, maybe 10%?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, maybe 10%.
Yeah. I like these, I like breaking things down like that. So I would say 10%, and then I always use 1% as my conversion to purchase number.
Yeah.
So if we say 10% are businesses, you have 5,000 businesses. Let's just use this as our number.
Yep.
5,000 businesses, and then 1% conversion of those 5,000 businesses is 50.
Yeah.
And then you look at that and you say, okay, I need to sell 5,000 decks to yield my replacement income. 50 is your hopeful conversion out of the pottery world. This is how I break down niches. I want to know the total number. We give ourselves a generous, if we capture 1% of the market for an acquisition, then what is our revenue out of that?
Yeah.
So in just a rough analysis of this, my opinion is that we've got to look at a broader market. We've got to find a bigger initial pool to sell to. So we've got to solve a more generalized problem and then have more potential customers and then convert those potential customers. Now, the challenge is that it still has to be niche, because if it's not niche, if you just say, I'm solving businesses, I help you grow your businesses, this is the business deck.
That's right.
And this business deck helps you do the analysis you need and understand the metrics of your business so that you can build and grow your business. That's so broad that you have to question whether you can make a deck that's effective, that generalized.
In response to Michael's opinion on broadening the target audience, I suggested that maybe I could target handmade businesses to make it more broad and to have a bigger market. And we decided to estimate the viability of this market by looking at number of Etsy sellers.
So the Etsy crowd.
Etsy stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I like that direction, because if we go here to how many sellers on Etsy, 2.5 million. Now, I like this number way better than this 50,000 number.
Yeah.
So 2.5 million Etsy sellers. This is a much better number to start with, because it's easy to go and say, okay, if we convert 1%, we know that these are all businesses, and we can convert 1%. It may be pretty generous to say we're going to convert 1% of the 2.5 million, but it's easy to look at it and say, okay, we've got a viable business for an Etsy seller.
Yes.
Okay, so I like that much better than even just going pottery. And I would hesitate to go any more niche than just saying this is the handmade business companion deck or
So one of the main outcomes of my session with Michael is having a focus on handmade businesses instead of just pottery businesses. So I propose that because I want to create cards as a medium, I said, okay, why don't I create a main card deck or main card pack that focused on handmade business concepts. So this could apply to many handmade businesses. It's very generalizable, very high level. But then thinking about how do I also create value for specific niches, I could also then say, hey, here is an expansion pack for, say, pottery. Here's an expansion pack for handmade soaps, expansion pack for handmade jewelry. And the idea behind that is very similar to a book he showed me, which is called the E-Myth. So the E-Myth, it had the main book, and then it had E-Myth applied to many different industries, specific niches. So I think this idea of creating something general as a main thing, and then you create variations as addition add-ons is a very good idea. And so I was much more happy with this approach. So that means I would have to pivot a little bit and not just focus on pottery, but also focus higher level. And I think, it kind of sucks when I'm focusing on something. I have to change my direction a little bit, but this is a reality of creating anything, creating a product, doing a project. Sometimes you have to learn that, after putting in a couple of weeks of time, it's not a good idea to go in this way. Maybe it's more interesting to approach something different, and that's okay. That is just part of the process. And I think that's expected. So always expect change to happen. So overall, I was extremely happy with hiring Michael, and instead of trying to figure everything out myself, I just needed someone to help me through it, because sometimes you just need that one person to ask you that one specific question to help you move forward, because I could really go in many directions. I just didn't know which one to go into. I didn't know how to determine which works or not. But sometimes you just need a sounding board to help you move forward. And I'm really glad I talked to him. He actually offered some really positive, encouraging words at the end of the video.
You have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And data visualization is a big industry.
Yeah.
UX design. Are you a UX designer also?
Mm-mm.
No. So, I mean, the UX designers think the way that you think also. And so that's such a huge market to pivot into in the future. I mean, I don't think you're going to need to. I think that you're next level on your abilities on data visualization. So I think that there's plenty of upside for you.
Yeah.
But if you've got the finances to be able to experiment with this for the next year and build it out and have fun, it's only going to benefit you. It's going to be part of your career story. Even if you don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on it, you're still going to be so proud of the product and what you created, and it's going to be an amazing case study, and that case study of your own is going to open up doors for you to who knows what else in the future, and it'll be part of your career journey that is your story that's fun and interesting as well. So there's no downside.
Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you learned a lot. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with this video series, and comment below on some questions and feedback you have for me. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.